Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Ateneo de Manila University community, I would like to welcome you to this webinar on energy and sustainable development. I am pleased to acknowledge our participants, notably the Vice President of the Philippines, Her Excellency, Vice President Maria Leonor Herona Robredo, our panel of experts, including Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, Secretary Alfonso Cusi, former Secretary Babe Singson, former Secretary Popo Lutilla, Dr. Jop Yap, Cecil Benavides, Ivy Baisic, and Dr. Lawrence Delena. We also take this opportunity today to honor the Ateneo de Manila University's 30th President, Father Jet Villarin. We are compelled to adopt this online format in response to the unprecedented pandemic that has battered our country. The adverse impacts of the spread of the COVID-19 virus traverse the physical, economic, social, cultural, psychological, and political well-being of our society. In the economic sphere, the pandemic has delivered a possible triple whammy. First, we definitely have a demand shock as the lockdowns has caused massive unemployment and a sharp reduction in purchases of non-essential goods. Second, there has also been a supply shock as supply chains have been disrupted because several small and medium enterprises have been forced to shut down and transportation systems are severely limited. Finally, there is also potential financial shock as many loans are left unpaid due to the aforementioned demand and supply shocks, thereby putting stress on some banks and other financial institutions. Similar shocks have buffeted the energy sector in particular. Demand for electricity in the wholesale electric spot market, or WESM, fell by 20% last April and 15% last May compared to the same period last year. During the period of enhanced community quarantine, electricity consumption dropped and largely shifted to the residential sector. Decreased demand and shifting load curves have likely led to a decline in the profitability of the power sector across its entire value chain. Meanwhile, the pandemic has also reduced construction activities and caused supply chain disruptions affecting all power generation technologies, as well as transmission and distribution. As the International Energy Agency succinctly describes it, the crisis has curbed investments in the energy sector and threatens to slow the expansion of clean energy technologies. At this stage, it is not too early to anticipate the most effective way to mitigate the adverse impacts of the pandemic on the energy sector. We can be guided by the recent publication of IEA titled World Economic Outlook Special Report on Sustainable Recovery, released just June 18, 2020. An important area is the government stimulus packages that will accompany recovery programs. The IEA Sustainable Recovery Plan shows it is possible to simultaneously spur economic growth, create millions of jobs, and put emissions into structural decline. One way to accomplish this is to put retrofitting of government buildings to promote greater energy efficiency at the center of the short-term component of the stimulus packages. That is one way to build back better. Another way is to strengthen our healthcare system so that the nation becomes more resilient to present and future health shocks. We are eager to hear from our experts today about their views on the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the energy sector and map ways through which the sector could emerge stronger. We also look forward to a discussion on plans of the government and the private sector in using the energy sector as a platform towards sustainable recovery. The Ateneo School of Government has organized this webinar partly because it is implementing a project titled Access to Sustainable Energy Program, Clean Energy Living Laboratories, or ASEP-CELLs. This is in partnership with the European Union and the Department of Energy. An additional important reason for today's event is that the general topic of sustainable development is close to Father Jet's heart. Our honoree today, Father Jet, has made addressing the problem of climate change his primary mission in his academic career. He is currently the chairperson of the Manila Observatory and a member of the National Panel of Technical Experts of the Philippine Government's Climate Change Commission. His past work on climate change included being lead reviewer of greenhouse gas emissions inventories of parties to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, and a member of the consultative group of experts for developing countries. Father Jet was a member of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, which received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2007. In 2000, he was declared National Outstanding Young Scientist, and in 2002, his book, Disturbing Climate, was given an Outstanding Book Award by the National Academy of Science and Technology of the Philippines. Father Jet's distinguished career as a climate action advocate mirrors his accomplishments as president of Ateneo de Manila University. We do not have enough time this morning to go through the accomplishments during his 9-year term, but allow me to please highlight some of the major milestones. Creation of learning, innovation, and collaboration hubs, foremost among which is the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability. Strengthening research to the university, including but not limited to the establishment of the research faculty track, research clusters, and international research partnerships. Overseeing the university's successful transition to K-12, a new core curriculum in college, and a new academic calendar, as well as co-education in the senior high school. Expanding the university's social engagement, an example of which is the Disaster Response and Management, or DREAM team, which is currently at the forefront of providing assistance to our fellow citizens adversely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. On a more personal note, Father Jet has been a staunch supporter of our reforms in the Ateneo School of Government and our efforts to grow the reach and impact of our policy research and teaching work. The first ever scholarships for ASoG students have been inaugurated under Father Jet's watch, including the Dean Dina Abad Emerging Leaders Fellowship for Young Public Servants and the San Ignacio de Loyola Valor Scholarship for deserving men and women leaders in our national security sector. As part of our mission to support good governance in the country, Father Jet also oversaw the creation of the Ateneo Policy Center, which hosts timely research on challenging political and economic issues, such as the joint UP-La Salle Ateneo research on the anti-illegal drugs campaign. ASoG is therefore very honored to organize this webinar to commemorate Father Jet's 3 distinguished terms as president of Ateneo de Manila University. At this point, I would like to briefly introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Lawrence L Delena, who is an assistant professor at the Division of Environment and Sustainability at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. His research interests include rapid mitigation of global climate change, accelerating sustainable and just energy transitions, and nonviolent climate mobilizations, research areas which dovetail with those of Father Jet. Dr. Delena has published several books and journal articles in this field. We are quite privileged that he is able to join us this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Delena.